Well, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of this series. There's a link in the description to go and see that video if you're just catching us here midstream. But this is part 2 of the 2002 Ford Focus clutch replacement video. And I described in the first introduction that this video is also available over at EricTheCarGuy.com in its full-length version, uninterrupted, that is available for purchase. So if you wish to watch this video from end to end, you can go over there to EricTheCarGuy.com, link down in the description, and purchase the full version of this video for yourself. Or you can think of it as a donation, however you want to look at it. Anyway, please enjoy part 2 of the 2002 Ford Focus clutch replacement video.
I'm thinking of coming in here with air hammer and trying to knock that guy loose. Never mind. It worked. It's that penetrating wheel. Just keep going with this. Instead of trying to par the ball joint up, I'm actually going to try to pry the lower control arm down now. Yay. Tap the axle through. Let's pry that out of that transmission. Looks a little tricky getting in here for this one, getting a pry bar. They actually make a slide hammer attachment that goes on to a slide hammer. I don't want to do this too much because it looks like I just damaged the case a little. And if I have to leave it in there, I will. But it should just pop loose. But it's not. Instead, it wants to fight us. Of course, it wants to fight us. Yep, it ain't coming out. They have like a fork attachment. It goes onto a slide hammer, which I don't have, that you can knock these out with. I'm just gonna leave the axle in for now. It's gonna make it more cumbersome, but I'm not gonna have to deal with trying to slide hammer it out. And I'm not gonna damage this case anymore. So we're just gonna get the other axle out. Nut came off just fine. Not looking so good on this side. Sometimes you have to get evil. I can't stress the importance of having the proper tools. I also installed the nut before I started doing anything, so I didn't booger up the threads. It doesn't want to come out of there for nothing. Actually, that looks a little bent. Maybe that's the reason why it was having such trouble. Let's see if we can bend it back, because that's a special fastener there. Let's see if we get lucky on this side too. Yay. We have a couple of things to get. These are 13s. I don't think I'll be able to get that top one. No, That's not gonna happen. Not with this socket anyway. It's a lot easier than some cars I've done. Yep. That's all we gotta do is pull that bad boy out right now. Let's do that. Got one of two axles out. And like I said, that other axle not coming out will be cumbersome, but not a big deal. Now I think it's time to support the engine. A couple different ways we can do this. We can put a floor jack with a wood block underneath, tenuous, or we can put a device that braces across the two fenders, which is what I think I'm gonna go for. Let's see if we can get that set up. Before I get the brace out, take my special pliers. I'm gonna crimp off the elastic line going to the clutch slave and disconnect the line from the clutch slave. That way I'm pretty much completely clear down here, and it's just a matter of disconnecting this engine mount, dropping the transmission. It's my hope, as far as that clearance goes, that we're able to rotate the transmission. We're able to pull away from the block, rotate the transmission down, and then pull it off. That would be a good situation. We'll see if it actually works out that way. I've just crimped off that rubber line. It goes to the front here, to this slave cylinder. Now to get this line out, there's this metal clip here. I'm just gonna pull up. I really shouldn't have to tell you that losing this metal clip would probably be one of the worst parts of your day, should it happen. Definitely put this in a safe place where you can find it. On the workbench, something like that. Now I just took my oil catch pan and put it back under the transmission because there's probably gonna be some fluid to come out here. And that's another reason why I waited to do this, because what that does, that makes it so that if it is dripping brake fluid, it doesn't drip it on your head. Now that that's clip is out, you should be able to just pull, and that should just pop right out of there, just like it did. There's another clip back in here. Just barely held in there. Let me get that up out of the way. There we go. Didn't really lose all that much fluid, and I'm pleased by that. Okay, there's still a couple of fasteners under here. One of those I think is the top starter mount. That one down there, and then this one here. Remember, we're leaving this one, but I'm going to take those two out. Memory serves, they're 13s. Alright, now before I put that brace on here, I'm going to need to disconnect these three fasteners on the top of this transmission. But the thing is, there's one that's in the back there that is difficult to show you. But if I take that off now, I won't have to worry about fighting around that thing. And just taking one of those out is not going to be a big deal. I can leave these other two in front for when I've already got it out. I'm glad I did it now instead of having the bar in the way. The reason for what we're about to do is that there's this mount holding this side up, and there's one engine mount over there. We already took the one out underneath, so that's all we got holding this thing in. So right now, this whole thing will flop back and forth, and as soon as we undo this engine mount, this engine's going to want to drop along with the transmission. So we're going to need to support the back side of this engine so that all the weight doesn't go on that front and it doesn't fall down. Thing is, sometimes what they'll have is like some kind of hook or something over here that we can gain purchase on, but we don't have that. So that makes hooking up our cross brace kind of tricky. So I have an old seat belt that I've used to pull engines before,
that I'm actually going to thread underneath this side of the cylinder head, because it actually sticks out enough, the cylinder head itself, to where I feel confident that, yeah, that'll support this side of the engine. I don't want to pull up on the coil packs or this cam sensor assembly back here. So I'm going to see what I can do to thread my seatbelt up under here and create a nice loop up top. This is this old seatbelt. Like I said, there's enough of a gap underneath this cylinder head where I feel confident going up under this, but I don't want to go into this plastic thermostat housing, any of this stuff. So we're going to have to make sure that we put our hook over here so that it stays locked on there. We don't want to go over this way because it could slip off. This is what I'm talking about. I got this relatively inexpensively from Harbor Freight. There are more expensive ones that are better quality, but this is good enough for my purposes. You might be able to rent this from, like, say, auto parts store, something like that. But you're going to need something to support this engine. So if you don't have this tool, I mean, you could try a flow jack under the engine block, but I got to say that I think that that's dangerous. This supports it from the top, spreads the load out. It's a much better option in my opinion. Let's install it. First thing to do is set these sides up. Get them situated in the fender. Need to tighten it down after that. Make sure it's on there good, because your life kind of depends on it. Now these can also pivot, so I'm going to pivot this whole thing up so that I have a straight shot instead of this angle that I got now. All right, here's the setup. We'll run the fender on that side. We'll run the fender on this side. Wrapped around underneath here. Got it underneath the cylinder head, make sure it's wrapped all the way around and hooked up. Now I'm going to disconnect these two on the motor mount and, well, drop the transmission down and get this clutch out of here. Hope I don't have to tell you to stay out of the way and make sure nobody's underneath it when you knock this thing loose. Have that motor mount disconnected, I'm going to slowly lower the engine and transmission down. You don't need to put it on the floor. Just try to get a decent angle. This way, if there are any fasteners in the back there, you can still get to them. I think that's about what I'm getting. I think if I go down any farther than that, it's going to be a problem with that axle. You don't want it resting on anything, so you still want to keep tension here. Well, this axle's coming into contact with this as I try to drop the engine and transmission down, so I need to do something about that. Like I said, I don't have the tool to slide hammer it out. However, if we do this right and we go up around that support for the spider gears, we can actually knock the axle back through that way. So that's what I'm going to do. But you have to be extremely careful. I can't stress how careful you need to be.
because mess up something inside this transmission and it's a bad day indeed. So I'm going to slip a screwdriver over the top of that, and I'm going to hit on the screwdriver, which is something you should not do, but I'm going to do it. I'm using an old, long, thin, flathead screwdriver, and I'm feeling that support for the spider gear, going around it, and I'm just going to tap it. Oh, it's going easy. Nice. It's already starting to move. I'm going to go check that axle. Must have hit it just right. Okay, you can see the axle starting to come out. Should be able to hit a pry bar on it and just pull it the rest of the way out. That's going to make life a lot easier. Now we have this electric speed sensor to disconnect. We have 1, 2, and then there's a third fastener up there, up above. And that would be the last of our fasteners, I believe. This one here holds the starter in, and then there's one back up behind it. That's the last bell housing bolt, but I'm gonna take these out next. First, the speed sensor. Sometimes connectors can be a problem. So I take these hose pliers and pinch the connector, and it sometimes works when, well, it oftentimes works when, like a charm. I think it's going to be easier to go through here with a long extension. This one here has a bracket. And I actually think I can do the same thing from this side. I think that just leaves us the one fastener in the front. And this transmission's loose. All right, we got one fastener left. And that transmission is moving. I can get my floor jack and put it up under it. Blocks of wood are your friend here. 2 reasons. It helps protect the transmission. It also makes it so you don't have to jack it up as high. Now we're at least supported. Last thing holding that transmission in. It's my hope that the rest of this goes smoothly. Having this floor jack here is nice. Doesn't look like that far at all. It needs to go. Be very careful here, because if you get your fingers in the wrong place, you'll be having a bad day. Ideal thing for this would be a transmission jack. Not sure how heavy this transmission is. I've handled some that aren't that bad, but I've handled others that were. And just as I suspected, that cross member, but not that heavy. Here it is, the reason we're here. You just look like 10s going around the outside that we can just remove. Life is good. And something to watch out for. See this wire's hanging down? I'm going to put this transmission back in. There's a good chance this wire may get stuck between the case and the block. So just, you see things like this. Just raise them up. Try to hook them up out of the way. Give yourself as much of an advantage as possible. Because see, they just, sometimes the parts just want to be like that. I'm gonna start at the top. These are 10 millimeter. All right, now this is the point where you say to yourself, Eric the Car Guy, do I need to machine the flywheel? And I'm gonna say it's a good idea. It really is a good idea. However, don't hate me, but I found it not to always be necessary. I'll show you what I do. I just really just sort of clean up this surface. And I haven't had a problem with them coming back with chattering clutches or what have you. So it's just my own personal experience on this one. However, remove these fasteners in the center here. You can take it to your local machine shop, whatever, and have that flywheel machined. It's up to you. All right, here's the clutch disc. You can see that it's pretty much down to the rivets. Like I said, and a few thousandths of an inch here makes a huge difference. Really, really does. And as you can see, at least on the pressure plate side, so this is on the pressure plate side that it started to actually dig in to the surface here. Well, I'm just looking at a worn out clutch. I don't see, sometimes you'll find springs fall out or parts of the pressure plate will come apart and get wedged in between and cause like an erratic clutch engagement, that kind of thing. But this is just a straight up worn out clutch is all this is. Let's take a look at our new clutch parts. I got a good kit that I like. I'm not advertising this kit, but they tell us a bunch of stuff about what makes it not a good warranty claim. It comes with a new slave cylinder, which I'm very pleased about, because should this fail, you have to go through all this trouble again. So if you renew this while you're here now, there's no better time. The other thing I'm happy to see is clutch alignment tool. This is extremely important. They give us molybdenum grease, it looks like, for the splines. Here's our new clutch disc, pressure plate. And as you can see, there's considerably more material that's left on this than there is on this. Doesn't look like much, but I can tell you right now, thousandths of an inch makes a huge difference here. Looks like these springs are a little bigger. And they even tell you right on here what side goes where. This side goes towards the flywheel. You always want your indentations to go inside this area here, inside the pressure plate. And the clutch alignment tool. Very happy to see this. So let's go install our throwout bearing and clean up our flywheel a little bit before we install. Here we are at the transmission. I'm gonna get some brass. This is our throwout bearing, which sounds kind of toasted. And here's our new one that we're gonna install. What I like to do before I start taking things off is I just wanna clean the area. No, I'm just using brake clean for this. I don't want to go overboard with this. I just want to sort of get some of the dust and stuff away. The reason I'm not going to be too worried about this is because, you know what?
like a couple of days after you do this, it's only gonna be dirty again anyway. I'm using hand tools for this. These are 8mm. Comes off pretty easy. That's pretty flimsy looking input shaft, but you can even hear how crusty this guy is getting. So, in a way, Ford making this all one piece and having to replace this as all one piece is honestly not a bad thing. It's going to be a pain to have to bleed the clutch out, but once again, I'm just wanting to clean this area here. That's it. Now, it looks like the new part has this rubber piece on here. Good idea to check these two. They look similar, but I'm a little concerned about the placement of the bleeder. We're going to find out if that's going to be a problem or not. Oh look, they gave us a new one of those clips. How kind. Okay, well, this part's not going to work. Well, this is why we should always check parts before we install them. You can see the differences in this throwout bearing as compared to this one. Also, look at the size of this hole, and look at the size of this hole. So, this is the input shaft for this one. This one's never going to fit in there. So unfortunately, we are shut down till tomorrow. So, we'll see you back here then.
There is something we can do while we wait, and that is just a little bit of preparation. Oh, sorry about that. A little bit of preparation on the flywheel. I'm going to take my angle die grinder. Normally I use more aggressive discs than this, but actually I'm out of those at the moment. But this one's plastic, and I'm just looking to rough the surface up. I'm not looking to make it beautiful. The ideal thing would be to take this out and have it machined. Like I said, it's not in the cards. But you would be surprised how good this is going to do. I say it's hard to argue with results, even if somebody disagrees with me. But all it was that little bit of cleaning up with that plastic wheel, and that just cleaned off the surface, so that didn't really dig in or anything. This tool that I used, these bristles are plastic, so it's not, if there's a fight between metal and plastic, the metal's gonna win, I can tell you that. But that's what I got just by doing what I did.
I just got the new clutch kit, and you should probably try this before you cut these things open like I did last time. So in watching this video you can learn that. You can see that the slave slash throwout bearing, these are both at the same angle and have the same look and everything, so I know that this part's going to work. It looks a little flimsier than the old part, but actually I believe they're made by the same company, so maybe it's the updated, cheaper design. Anyway, those are the same. But here's a good way to quickly check if you have the correct clutch disc, and if the new clutch comes with an alignment tool, which it really should, because without this, your life is going to be very difficult. You can just take the alignment tool, slip it into the old clutch, and if it does, you know you're good. So now that we know that we have the correct clutch, we're going to install it in the vehicle and take it from there. Check out the difference in friction material here, just so that you can get an idea of just how worn out this clutch is. Yeah, pretty far gone. You can tell also the depth to the rivet heads. I mean, that's making contact there, but you've got all that space there. That's a lot. Just an FYI, try not to touch the actual friction material. Try to handle it like I'm holding it here by the edges, and then the hole. That way you're sure not to contaminate that, especially with any oil or anything. That's gonna wreck your day. So keep this clean and dry. We're back in business. This new throwout bearing slash clutch slave has a little plug up here in the top that I'm gonna leave in until I go and put the line in. That way, this will keep any dust or debris from getting down into this assembly. But fairly simply, just install it. Stick it up on there and run the 3 fasteners in. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll lubricate the shaft that the throwout bearing rides on, but in this case it's right on the assembly itself, so I'm not going to bother with that, because really you don't want a whole lot of lubricants in this area. Be very sparing, because you can see the amount of dust and everything that accumulates in here. All you're going to do with lubricants, if you're not using the correct lubricants in the right spot, is you're going to create an area for all that dust and stuff to collect on. You don't want to do that. So any lubricants you use them sparingly. My kit came with this little tube of what looks to be like moly grease. I'm going to use just on the splines for the clutch itself. That might give you a better view of what I'm doing. But this is so that the clutch disc can release easier. And they didn't give you a lot because you don't need a lot. Very little bit to put onto those splines. And that's all you need. You don't need to goop this up. I'm going to do one more on this, and that is I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant just on the face of this throwout bearing, so that when it makes contact with the pressure plate fingers, there's a nice smooth operation there. And I'm using high temperature lithium grease for this, and I'm just doing just a little bit. Just enough to put a little moisture on there, and that's it. That's all I'm going to put on. I'm done. So just that little bit there will help the fingers on the pressure plate a little bit better. But remember, you don't need a lot of lubricants in here, because they're just going to get all crusted up with dust anyway.
Meanwhile, back at the transmission, we are going to install our clutch disc and pressure plate. Very important. You'll notice the clutch disc has like an indentation on one side and it's flat on the other side. The flat side always goes towards the flywheel like this. As far as the pressure plate goes, what I want you to do is take a little bit of brake clean around the inside where the friction material will make contact and clean that area. And the reason you're doing this is because it's coated with a rust inhibitor, and that will get that rust inhibitor off of there before you actually install the pressure plate.
Be safe, have fun, stay dirty.